What up, Hops? It is day 5 of Answer Record Week here at Werner von Longros, and today I'm here to talk to you about a 90s underground classic, an Answer record you probably do know about it, but let's talk about it anyway, just because, I don't want it to be all obscure, rare, and craziness. Let's talk about one that really deserves to be mentioned. Talking about Streetz Ain't No Burner on True Criminal Records from 1996. This is Streetz first 12-inch, and essentially it's basically just one guy known as FT, which stands for Fuck That, who's had a pretty long underground career, but it started here with the Streetz 12 inches. Technically, Streetz is the crew, and I think he has some sort of DJs, a couple DJs, and maybe 1 or 2 other guys down with him that sort of collectively made up Streetz. But essentially, really, listen to the records, it's just the one guy. And later on, he dropped the whole Streetz thing and just started putting out records as FT. But back in the beginning, it was Streetz. This was his debut, Ain't No Burner, 1996. He then went on to do some pretty good records here, like Metal Things with Pharomonch and OC, Problems, Effortless, referencing his own name, of course. So he did some really strong underground records, all on True Criminals in the late 90s. In fact, Metal Things, possibly his greatest record of all time, and he, in fact, even later went on and did Metal Things Part 2 with Fat Joe and Nature, but the first one really is the classic. And that song, both the title and the hook, is a reference to Ain't No Burner, a line in this song. He says, when you hear what I have to say, your head will swing, because it's just a ghetto things where we pack metal things to settle things. That's a great line, and he turned that into a hook, of course, and a thematic concept for the song Metal Things the year later. But yeah, it came originally from the song Ain't No Burner, so that's already one thing you might not know about Ain't No Burner. And real quick, I'm just going to use the opportunity to say this. I was just reading on Nas's Tumblr, not Nas like Illmatic, but Nas like NOZ, the hip-hop journalist. I was reading on his Tumblr, he's sort of talking about what the heads consider a lyrical MC, and he's basically using it to sort of take shots at the corniness of even referring to MCs as lyrical, which, to be fair, is a bit corny, and I agree with him. But he's saying, it's just, nerds who want people to say things like lyrical, miracle, spiritual, but see, that's not true. You want a real example of what a lyrical MC is, especially by the 90s standard, since we're talking now about a 90s record, and he's sort of referencing, frankly, some 90s stuff, is that kind of lyric, like I just quoted, your head will swing when we pack metal things just to settle things. Because A, it's a great complex rhyme, B, it's smart. That's the real thing that sets it apart. It doesn't have to necessarily be complex, and he quotes some examples that are non-complex as his sort of antithesis to what a lyrical MC is. But the whole point is, what he's saying isn't an antithesis. That's what lyrical MCs are, is being smart. So just saying lyrical, spiritual, miracle, that's the cliche. That's the most hackneyed thing anybody could possibly say to try to prove they're lyrical. That's absolutely not what something who's looking for a lyrical MC would want to hear, especially today, now that it is such a trite thing to say. But even back then, it would have been pretty corny. Something like this, where it's clever rhyming, it's saying something, it's smart, it's engaging, it's compelling thematically. That's what makes it lyrical. The fact that it's also multisyllabic and clever in the rhymes, compounding that at the same time is what I think really makes it strong. A lot of times you'll get an MC who can do A but not B, or B but not A. But this is an example where it really comes together, and that's what great rapping really is. When the wordplay, the cleverness, the substance all comes together to make a great rhyme like that. And yet at the same time, it's also an answer record. And, you could say a novelty, gimmicky, kind of silly record. Sure, certainly. This is an answer record, of course, to Ain't No Nigga by Jay-Z and Foxy Brown, which was a huge hit. Here you go, or Ain't No Playa, as it was known to commercial radio. You might be looking at this 12-inch and saying, that's not the one I recognize. What is that? Well, I just happen to have this, and I figured I'm never going to make a video about this record anyway, because it's not that great. It's just sort of slightly interesting in an offshoot, so I'll throw it into this video. This is the Ganja Crew remix of, well, in this case, Ain't No Playa. Came out on Northwest Records there, NWS, Northwest Side, whatever. It was an offshoot of BMG or something. This was a UK thing. The Ganja Crew, nothing to do with the guys on the West Coast. This is some UK drum and bass, jungle music kind of thing. So I guess maybe I'll play a clip of it. decent if you like drum and bass jungle kind of thing. It's certainly not a very effective remix of Ain't No Nigga. In fact, that's probably the problem with this song, is that instrumentally it's like pretty good for a drum and bass kind of record, but it really doesn't carry off the lyrics of the song. They really just don't feel like they were meant to go together at all. But it's interesting, sort of a weird, random, one-sided record. I don't know if I've ever shown a one-sided record on video before, but okay, your standard A-side, the B-side, well, you probably can't really see it, but there are no grooves cut into the lax. It's kind of a cheap UK dance record curiosity piece. But unlike that dance remix, Ain't No Burner does keep the original break and bass line and everything from the Jay-Z original. It's certainly very distinctive, very catchy. Instrumentally, you can immediately see why it was a huge hit record, although, let's face it, Jay-Z was certainly not the first one to use it. I don't know if this is the first case it was ever used, but certainly where it became a big hit already and established itself as a hip-hop breakbeat was EPMD's It's My Thing from 1987 or 88, sometime around then, from their first album. A great single, sounded fantastic. It's all about that womp, 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 bass line. It's just really distinctive. It sounds fantastic. And then in the early 90s, the Alcoholics totally repurposed it, basically using the whole thing again, but just with their whole unique style and delivery for, I think it was called Only When I'm Drunk. It was one of their big singles off of their first or second album, I think their first album, but it's just a really strong single from the Alcoholics. Again, just really flipping that same bass line. So on the one hand, it was really, you could totally see why everybody fell in love with it when Jay-Z and Foxy Brown came out with it. But then as a more sort of a serious hip-hop head, when you saw that record go completely mainstream, you want to say to audiences like, I see why you're falling in love with this, but we've had this beat, like we've heard it many times before and fallen in love with it like a decade before. So it's sort of interesting that you're getting so excited by it now in 1996, and we were in love with it back in like 1987. So just one of those classical divides there for us young hip-hop pseudo-elitists back in the early 90s. But anyway, so it was a great beat, great track, and so it did feel a little bit like too much of, venturing into pop crossover status. So it was really nice to see an underground MC like Streetz take it back. Production here is credited to a guy named Pass Dat, D-A-T, like digital audio tape. I've never heard of the guy, but frankly, it might just be a joke on the fact that they've stolen the whole instrumental anyway from Jay-Z. Maybe that's what they mean. The Dat from Ain't No Nigga, I don't know. Or maybe it is some underground guy who I don't know much about. In any case, there's really not much production here to speak of because they've just taken some already excellent production by Jay-Z. The only thing this record really is sort of missing is that one of the other strongest aspects of Ain't No Nigga is that it's a duet. And while I'm not the hugest Foxy Brown fan, Jay-Z is pretty dope, and certainly they both sounded really good together. They played off of each other, they went back and forth. There was a battle of the sexes thing. You also had her doing the hook. Here is just FT himself. Again, okay, Streetz is a crew, but it's just the one guy, FT, doing the whole record by himself. So you really lose that back and forth aspect to it. It is kind of fun, though, when he sings the hook himself, because, of course, Foxy Brown did a whole, very feminine hook, and now he's doing this really Ain't No Burner, by the way. If you don't know, if you didn't get it from the title, burner meaning gun, meaning firearms, that's all it's about. He's just singing, basically a love song to his gun. It's sort of a joke, sort of not. Definitely sort of the 90s underground answer record alternative to Ain't No Nigga. Sort of like, if you think that's too pop and played out and crossover, then listen to this. No matter what you feel about the Jay-Z record, this is a dope record. It is a classical beat that's been used before, even like had been used before by Jay-Z, but it still sounds great. FT sounds great on it. Lyrically, it's very smart, and yet also at the same time kind of fun and a little bit silly, but not too silly, that it gets really jokey. It's an answer record, so there's some novelty value there. But even if there wasn't, this record really stands on its own as a good, fun, smart, clever, irreverent, and, frankly, a prequel to a really great underground record, Metal Things. So let's hear a clip of it now. Ain't No Burner by Streetz, parenthetically FT, True Criminal Records, 1996. His first record, and only like the second record on the label True Criminal, which actually did a bunch of interesting underground 90s stuff, like Ox Skills, and, well, I'm not going to get off on a tangent, but True Criminal was a dope 90s label, and this was one of the earliest examples. Whoa, wait, I'm back. film this quick little insert. I already finished the whole video, but I came back because I just realized I credited Jay-Z for production of Ain't No Nigga, but of course, he rapped on that record. He's a front man on that record. It's his name on the record, but he didn't produce it. It's actually credited to Big Jazz, of course, his old-time partner, the Jazz. Just wanted to correct that before I threw this video out there. So thanks for watching again. Stay tuned for day 6 coming very shortly. And now, finally, a clip of Ain't No Burner. Putting it off no longer. Here we go. Peace.
Yeah, the street smart thing. For all you gun-loving motherfuckers. Yeah, for all you gat packers. Yo, niggas should call me your army, cause I'm on beats. When I ever thought that's concrete, what's my brain in the trauma? Pumping like the Buddha, but I got to shoot you once I shot the Ruger. To stop the future like a prosecutor, that's my specialty. I'm not a rap star, let a celebrity step to me. I leave this life in jeopardy like leprosy. While there's a lot of others frontin', they make me want to smother something that have nothing but motherfucking brothers bustin'. More and more, I was raw before, with hardcore literature, metaphors galore. You don't gotta guess what happened, cause when I'm done rapping, your only thoughts is gun clapping, nut slapping, and crunk snap emphasizer. With my crew, I'm an improviser, my mental's lava, to any gimmick or a synthesizer. Ain't no burner like the one I got. GM some time, but it lasts off a lot. Friends tell me I should leave it at home. Nah. Tell the fools to get it out of there. I got it. F-bombs is penetrating with firearms, disintegrating bulletproof vests, making your shots not irritating, fuck the nation.